Hi everyone and welcome back to Rough Rider, where every week I talk writing, self-publishing, and living in a barely literate society. Today we're going to be talking about Kindle Vella, which is KDP's newest self-publishing option, and some important things to know before you get started. The first thing you should know about Kindle Vella is that it's made for serial stories. Vella is made for authors who want to release their stories as individual episodes. Any given Vella episode has to be between 600 and 5,000 words. You keep your readers engaged by gradually releasing a story, so they'll only be waiting a short time for your next story instead of waiting months or maybe years for your next novel to come out. And even if you've already released a serial story like this on your website or your blog or some other place online, you can still publish it on Kindle Vella and not have to take it down in the original place where you posted it. There is one restriction you should know about though, which is that you can't break down one of your previously published books into like little pieces and then release those on Kindle Vella as episodes. It has to be content that's always been serialized. It has to be in that format to begin with. You can't just break something bigger down and make it into episodes. But that leads to the second thing you should know about Kindle Vella is that you can always publish a book later. So maybe you can't turn a book into a Kindle Vella story, but you could do it the other way around. If your Vella story did well, then down the line you might want to republish it as a book and just consolidate everything and put it all out as one piece. You can even include it in the KDP Select program, and you don't have to take down the original Vella story. Like, it doesn't count against your exclusivity with KDP for your ebook. So it's not going to boot you out of the program. But before you release your Vella story as a book, there are certain requirements you have to meet. The last episode of your Vella story has to have been available to readers for at least 30 days. And your Vella story also has to have at least 10 episodes. You can also only republish that Vella story in one book, so you can't break it up and incorporate it into multiple books. Like, it has to just be, this is your Vella story now in book form. But I think it's great that you can always re-release it later as a book, because I think that's something that, like, especially if you did well with Vella, like, why not do that? It just seems like a sensible next step. And the next thing you should know about Kindle Vella is that it really allows for more reader engagement. So Vella gives you a lot more opportunities to engage with your reader than just publishing a regular book does. When you publish just a normal book, whether it's an ebook, paperback, or whatever, then, you know, readers can leave a review, which is fantastic, obviously, but that's about all they can do to give you feedback. But with Vella, the readers can do a lot more than just that. They can follow your stories, so they get notifications about new episodes being released. They can also fave episodes that they enjoyed the most on a given week. And if you get a lot of those faves, this is Amazon's terms, not mine, then your story can get featured in the top fave section of the Vella store. So it's going to be highlighted in, you know, an obvious place when someone logs into that looking for stories. And if it does become a top fave, then, sorry, I don't like that term very much, then a crown is going to appear on the story image, like a little crown icon in the top. So people know that this is something that has been favorited a lot by other people, and it lends more legitimacy to it. It's sort of like having a lot of good reviews, except someone can just see it like instantly, like, oh, there's just like a crown here, therefore people must have had a good reaction to it. People liked this. But even if a reader doesn't fave your story, they can still leave a thumbs up at the end of the episode when they finish it. And I think this part's really cool. You can actually poll your readers at the end of an episode. I've never heard of this before. You could like get your readers involved in the story if you wanted to. Like, you could, since your next episode's not out yet, in a poll for, you know, the most current one, you could have it that the readers can decide what course of action a character is going to take, what a certain person is going to be named, or, you know, anything like that. You can get them involved and they can actively participate in the writing of the story or the shaping of this story. I think this is a really unique way to get people engaged with your work, and honestly, I haven't really seen this elsewhere, so I find that very interesting, and it seems like it has a lot of promise to me. Now, the next thing that you should know about Kindle Vella is that it has a different royalties system than regular ebooks do with Amazon. The way you get paid with Vella is different than usual books. With ebooks, you get 70% royalties, so it's pretty straightforward. You just do 70% of the retail price, and there you go. That's what you get for it. But Vella's more complicated because it involves a token system that readers use to unlock new episodes. So readers buy these tokens on Amazon, and they cost different amounts depending on how many the person's buying. So like 200 Vella tokens cost $1.99, but then 525 Vella tokens cost $4.99. And then there's bigger packages than that. And then the token price of a Vella episode is based on its word count. So it costs 1 token per 600 words. So a 600 word episode is going to cost 6 tokens to unlock. And then here's the formula that they use to calculate royalties. Kind of complicated. So you have is the number of tokens to unlock the episode times, and this is like a fraction fraction. So the tokens in the bundle price divided by the tokens in the bundle minus taxes and fees, and then times 50% revenue share equals your earnings per episode. So based on that formula, if your episode is 3,000 words, and that means it costs 30 tokens. So plug that into the formula, you got 30 tokens times, and now it goes into what the reader had bought in terms of their token package. So let's say they bought 200 tokens and that cost them $1.99. So it's $1.99 divided by 200, and then that times 50%. So altogether, I'm not gonna do the math out. The result is that you get 14 cents in royalties if one person reads that episode having bought that number of tokens. Obviously, not super straightforward. You're not really gonna be able to figure this out on your own. You're just gonna have to take Amazon's word for it when they start telling you this is how much you earn this month. And while obviously 14 cents is not very much, you gotta consider that if you have a lot of readers viewing your Vella content, this does add up. Also, this is just for one episode. And if you keep in mind, let's say you have a print book, depending on how long it is and what you price it as and what format it's in and like what the printing cost is, you might end up earning that same amount just for selling one book. You get like more money basically for less time writing if you use Vella, because you get that same amount of money from someone reading just one episode, which is 5,000 words or less. So it does seem like kind of a smart option to me if you're able to write short like that. Not everyone is cut out for it, but you know, if you are the kind of person that can write short stories, then you should probably try this out, because it seems like it can add up a lot faster than selling like print books. And then the more episodes you have published, then you know, the more you're gonna get. And then all this talk about royalties leads into the next thing you should know about Kindle Vella, which is that it has unique best practices. So KDP already has a list of best practices for Vella, even though it hasn't been out that long. And then these are unique to Vella because readers are viewing this content differently than they would if they were buying your ebooks or your print book. First thing they say you should do is that you should publish your episodes at regular intervals. Your readers expect to read these stories on a more or less consistent schedule. Think about like someone who's a commuter or something, and every Monday they're looking forward to this new story that they read every week. I'm like this with podcasts. Like I always wait for a certain day that this one that I like that's in Spanish called Enigma Sin Resolver, which is like about like ghosts and paranormal stuff. I love it. You know, every week it comes out on a certain day, and that's what I listen to on my way to work as just like language practice. So it's the same thing with your Vella episodes. People are gonna be like, oh, you know, I always read this on my commute to work or from work, so I'm waiting for it to come out on a certain day. So you don't want to disappoint them by not being consistent with what days you're gonna put these out. KDP states that top fave episodes are generally released on a weekly basis with one or more episodes. Another best practice they mention is that you should add author notes to the end of your episodes, which is basically like a call to action for a reader to engage with your story. You can also use it as a way to, you know, kind of like give updates to your readers and inform them of things that are maybe coming up, the new releases or teasers for the next episode that's going to come out. And then you should also share your publishing schedule in your story description so readers know when to expect the next episode to come out. And finally, they also say this, but this goes for everything in self-publishing. This is not really unique to Vella, but they mention, you know, you should cross-promote on social media, which is such a no-brainer. Like, you should do that for any sort of creative project. Like, people are not going to know about it if you don't do that. So yeah, that's not unique to Vella, but it's definitely something you should keep in mind. It's foolish not to do that. So something I'll say about Kindle Vella is that I don't think it's probably a good fit for everyone. God knows it probably would not be good for me because I have a really hard time writing short like that. Like, even things that I've written that I consider to be short stories are really not that short. They're still like 3 times as long as what a Kindle Vella episode can be at the maximum. So for me, I don't really think that this is something I'd be able to do. But if you are someone who can write short like that and is succinct and can really pack a lot of content into a short amount of space, then I think that this is something that you should at least consider and maybe look into a little bit more. Even if you don't make a lot of money off of it, it's just a good way to release your stories in increments like that if that's something that you're good at. It probably is more likely to be seen than if you were going only on your blog or your website and releasing it in increments like that. So if you want to learn more about Kindle Vella, I did put a link to KDP's help guide in the description, so that does explain a lot of topics, so you can check that out. And I do also have a longer blog post about Kindle Vella if you want to check that out as well. I put the link in the description. So if you found this interesting or helpful, please like and subscribe, follow me on social media, and as always, thank you for watching. God bless.